Why are you wearing a fireman's outfit?
Whatever. Hey, this is William Baxter for the William Baxter Experience. This is Paul Bell with me, and tonight is the first episode of one of our new shows here on the William Baxter Experience. It is titled Retro Review, and tonight we are going to be doing our review on Paul rubbing my dog's head. Honestly, that's all he's doing. But honestly, we're actually going to be reviewing the Friday the 13th franchise, the complete franchise from the 1980 classic all the way up to the 2009 reboot. And then we're going to be talking about a bunch of stuff in the middle about the cultural impact to the Friday the 13th series and the character Jason himself has done. So, if you will, let's go ahead and get started. We are going to also, let's talk about Friday the 13th, Paul. When was the first time you saw it?
The first time I saw it, I was about, I'm going to say maybe 8 years old. It was a precocious little scamp, you know. And, you know, I got curious about it, decided to sit down and watch it, and I've been a horror fan ever since. It really just kick-started a true love of horror movies. And I don't know if it was just the fact that Jason was the first horror villain that I really saw, but he's always just stuck with me. He's been an iconic character, and I
can remember
gravitate towards it.
I can remember when we had what we called video stores. I can remember there was this little mom and pop's video store, and those who live in Citrus County, they're the Winn-Dixie Plaza downtown, where the original Winn-Dixie's at. There was a place called Act 1 Video, or not Act 1 Video, but Family Video. There was several, but I can remember always seeing it on the shelves and everything, and I always remember seeing the commercials, for, you know, TV spots and everything for it, and I was just, you know, really kind of frightened about seeing these things, you know, at first. I was like, I want to see them, but because, you know, there was some controversy. We'll get into that later about the controversies of these films.
It's controversy that survives today.
Yeah.
Not so much with the newer horror movies because they mostly suck. But
yeah. But a lot of I can remember the first time I saw Friday the 13th film was actually the third one, which was in 3D, but it was of course it was regular TV. It wasn't in 3D.
Right.
And I can remember my mother, and it was regular TV, so anything that was the hardcore violence parts and any nudity was, you know, of course, cut out.
Yeah.
And
all the good stuff.
Yeah. But I can remember watching it with my mother and my brother Sean at the time. And I can remember I did not sleep a wink. I mean, my mom was, you know, we were all like real adrenaline, you know, when we thought Jason was about to get the surviving girl and everything in the movie, and we're like, no, get her. And I can remember my brother, he would get up and he was having nightmares like crazy, and he was like, you know, sitting up, shaking his hand and doing this and everything.
So how old were you at the time?
I want to say I was in third grade, around third grade.
Oh, there you go.
I want to say it was around that time, and but yet again, it grew on me and everything, you know. And of course, you know, when they would come on, when I would go to my grandmother's house, my grandmother had cable, and you know, she had Cinemax.
Oh, there you go.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The only reason why I went over to my grandmother's house, I mean, come on.
You didn't go for the dishes of candy that were left out?
No. She was a great cook, but you know, she had
so you weren't a Werther's man, is that what you're saying?
She had Skinemax too.
There you go.
But I got to see, you know, more of these Friday the 13th movies that would come on like HBO and Showtime or Cinemax, and you know, or you know, USA would do a marathon of them when the day Friday the 13th would come around, and I was hooked. I mean, I thought, you know, this is really, you know, plus the special effects, which we're going to get into when it comes to the first movie, were just, you know, I'm like, how did they do that? This was wizardry.
Oh yeah.
This was like smoke and mirrors when it comes to.
I mean, you know, going into the 80s, you know, you didn't see a lot of special effects. Most of it was, you know, poorly done, but that was something that Friday the 13th really did.
Latex.
Yeah,
they were, you know, the guy who Tom Savary.
Yep.
Who I actually met briefly one time and everything through a person and everything who was a casting agent. I was, you know, trying to get in this movie. years. This is about 10 years ago or so, or about 13 years ago. And I met him very briefly, you know.
Right.
And he was like, you know, he just, you know, he was talking to his friend, and you know, while I was listening in and everything, you know, he was just saying about how, you know, just, you know, how some CGI and everything has, you know, just kind of taken the fun out of a lot of the special effects.
Yeah.
But that's what Friday the 13th movies were a staple on, was latex makeup and how real that you can make it.
Oh yeah.
And
But I think that's part of what made it one of the scarier franchises.
Yeah.
You know?
But let's go ahead and get into the first film. Of course, Friday the 13th, released in 1980. It dethroned The Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah.
It, you know, which, you know, was a juggernaut of a film when it came out. You know, of course, you know that, you know, Empire Strikes Back, being the second Star Wars film, was a, you know, ruled that entire year. But you know, God, I can't remember how long it was #1. But Friday the 13th came along, this no-name little ditty crappy film, came out of nowhere and just, you know, knocked it right off its the top of the mountain.
Just the difference in the cinematography of it. I mean, Friday the 13th more looked like, you know, almost it was shot by just an average person.
Yeah.
You know, that fact alone just surprised me that it could dethrone, you know, a Star Wars movie which is based on its special effects, its realism, you know, just shocked me.
And it was directed and produced by Sean S. Cunningham, who also produced, along with former New Line Cinema head Robert Shaw, Last House on the Left, which oddly enough was directed and written by Wes Craven, who created Freddy Krueger, the character Freddy Krueger. So, you know, of course, we all know the deal with Freddy Krueger and Jason, which later on in this video we're going to talk about too. It's oddly enough that those two guys from their first movies and everything happen to be, you know, the two guys that created the two biggest cultural movie horror icons in the last 30 to 40 years. But again, it was written by Victor Miller, and I have to say, it also it co-starred young Kevin Bacon. It was like one of his first roles. It's like his second or third role, I think.
Second or third, possibly second, if I'm not mistaken.
Because Animal House was his first.
Yeah, yeah. I remember he got killed maybe 30 to 45 minutes into the film.
Yeah, yeah, and he had one of the most iconic ones and everything. He had an arrowhead go right through his throat. Right?
It was an arrow from the archery field. It was pressed up right through the mattress under the bed.
And if you watch a documentary called His Name is Jason or Camp Crystal Lake Memories, they explain to it and everything that, you know, when the scene of the blood splurting out, it actually was an air bubble that got caught in the tube.
But it worked.
Yeah, it worked, and it was effective and everything. I mean, and oddly enough, you know, that movie, you know, they have a director's cut now that if you get the 4-pack, you will get the uncut version of Friday the 13th, and you think it's, you know, pretty violent. You know, the uncut version, you know, it hits pretty hard, or hits pretty hard and everything, surprisingly. But it's also, like I said, there's if you want more information, you know, about all this, you know, there's the documentary His Name is Jason and Camp Crystal Lake Memories. There's a book and a documentary of that same name, and I do recommend those two for you to read and watch and everything. They're very entertaining, very insightful.
Gives you a real behind-the-scenes look and feel to it, you know.
And I can't remember who did the score of Friday the 13th. Let me look right here real quick. But
Off
that
the top
is
of my head, I can't remember, but it's one of those, you know, things that really sticks with the series as it goes through.
Harry Mancini.
Yep.
Harry Manfini. I'm sorry. I tell you, it's just eerie.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I mean, especially when
it's right up there with you know, Halloween.
Yeah.
And it's right up there with Nightmare on Elm Street.
And Psycho.
And Psycho, you know, those scores just kind of defined the character. They let you know they were coming, you know. Really built up the suspense for you is what it did.
And really, and if you watch the documentary, the composer said that what he did was he did some type of harmonizer or echo harmonizer and everything on a speaker and everything, and he was what he's trying to say was kill, mom, 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 and it turned out to be
Yeah. Yeah.
So some people will go so there's a lot of different variations that people don't, but it's actually, I think it's
Yeah. It's one of those cases where you hear what you think you hear.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, there's plenty of spots in movies where you think you hear something, but it's actually something else.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's one of those cases where, a slight mistake really worked in the favor of the Friday the 13th franchise.
Yeah.
It really just helped make Jason a little bit more iconic.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and get into the how the sequels pretty much came about. I think what it was that Sean S. Cunningham didn't come back. His co-producer and co-partner, it was, let me see here again. For the second one, it was Steve Miner. He did the second and the third one. Steve Miner also, he directed many other different films. He also directed H2O, Halloween H2O. And I have to say the second one for me, for some reason, it was different because, as you touched on earlier, the first one had that suspense of a whodunit.
Yeah.
And the first one...
I think part of it was because you never saw Jason as the person killing him. It always did a kind of POV, point of view, of the killer. You never saw the killer's face. The only time you actually see Jason in the first movie is 2 times. Once when his mother is telling the story of him drowning, and then once at the end, him attacking the boat with a survivor in it.
Yeah.
Those are the only 2 times you actually see Jason.
And that's how the character Jason pretty much got...
That's pretty much his origin story.
Yeah, that's how he was made and everything. Yeah. He was made most or less, him, Tom Savary, and Victor Miller, and Sean S. Cunningham. They didn't really have an ending, and they wanted a surprise ending. Yeah. So that's how Jason got created. Jason was never meant to be. He was meant to be just this backstory to push the mother into this revenge point.
Who was the actual killer of the original Friday the 13th?
Yeah, and that's a funny thing. You pointed on, before we move on a little bit more about the sequels, a lot of people think that Jason's the first, was the killer in the original film. It wasn't. It was Mrs. Voorhees, Pamela Voorhees. And
what really worked in the favor of that was the fact that you never saw Jason.
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't even introduce her until about the last third of the movie.
Yeah.
You had no idea who the character was. She just came out of nowhere.
And they had it set up so pretty good and everything that you thought that, they had canceled or maybe the killer because he left and he was driving the same Jeep and everything. And then all of a sudden you see him get killed.
Yep.
Spoiler alert. And then...
I don't know. You think 35 years later, spoiler alert?
There's a whole new generation out there,
It's true.
But you know what, guys? Hey, we don't care. But I have to say, when she drove up and everything, the first time I saw it, I'm thinking, what's the deal with this? Oh, maybe this is going to be the woman that's going to save her. I'm like, oh great, this woman's going to get killed off in a second.
That was my first
And
thought.
then when she started talking and everything, you're thinking, okay, this bitch is crazy.
Oh yeah.
And this definitely got to be the killer. So we went ahead. Let's go ahead and get right into part 2. As I was saying, for some reason, part 2 just, I don't know. I don't know how you feel about part 2, but for me, I have a hard time watching it because it just seems more brutal. And it is just, I get chills when I watch it still because of the brutality of it. And I'm just, it just seems more intense. I mean, because you got this guy who's a mongoloid, he's this hard guy to kill, he's like basically living off the land and everything. You really, and the funny thing in the beginning of the film, when you watch it, it also makes you go, okay, 1, how did he learn to use a phone and call the survivor of the first one? 2, why is the survivor of the first film back at Crystal Lake or anywhere close to Crystal Lake where he can trot along through the woods and find her in a phone book more than likely, because back in those days you didn't have Google or map finders.
It's called the Yellow Pages.
And yeah, and then you got the fact that you know, you're killing. It's something that also kind of went, kind of a little bit of a tradition. Whoever survived the first one ends up dying in the next one, at the beginning of the next sequel or something.
They tend to set up the next group of people, symbolizing that the first movie had been done, ended, that story was over, giving you a new bit. You know?
Yeah, and you know, the opening was a little weak, but it just makes you wonder, like, you know, like, okay, we saw Jason as a boy, and if you watch the timelines, and I'm gonna, there's a bunch of stuff on YouTube that explains the timeline of the Friday the 13th, because the timeline of the Friday the 13th series is so freaking broken up. It is not even funny. I mean, you don't even know, you know, I mean, some people don't even realize that when it comes to Friday the 13th, part 2, 3, and 4, it's all on a weekend. So, and part 1, in between part 1 and part 2 is supposed to be like 5 or 6 years, and part 4, in between part 4 and 5 is supposed to be 10 years. I said, I'm not explaining it to you. There is no way in hell I'm going to explain it to you. Just go on YouTube and look up Friday the 13th timelines. You'll find a couple videos, and even the guys who must have really spent a lot of free time.
They put in the man hours.
Yeah, they put in the man hours. Yeah. These guys, when they talk about it, they talk about it with some bitterness too.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you sons of bitches who are writing these things, learn to watch the first movie.
When you're a hardcore fan, you get disappointed to see new writers brought into a franchise.
Yeah.
And they take what you think you know and just completely turn it on its ear.
Yeah.
You know, and that's frustrating. As a person who's a fan of the series, you know, you hate to see just the quality seemingly go downhill.
You would think that watching the previous film would help.
You would think they'd do that, but it's kind of like a kid in their homework. You know, if I can do it on the bus to the way to school, I'm going to enjoy my night of TV and video.
As a Star Trek fan, I would see the difference in the bridges. I mean, I would say, okay. First, in the first Star Trek movie, Spock was sitting directly behind Captain Kirk. In the second Star Trek movie, he's sitting on his seat on the side of Captain Kirk. He's on his right-hand side. And everybody else, you know, you see the differences, you know, and it gets frustrating. But when it comes to the Friday the 13th writing, these guys really
if you try to get into the timeline, it'll ruin the whole series for you.
Yeah,
I mean,
will.
If you really try to put that much thought into it, just take it for what it is. It's an awesome series, and it's more about the, you know, the blood and gore, if you will. You know, it's a slasher flick. You know. That's actually what it's meant to be. So you put too much thought into it, you lose yourself in it. You know.
And for the second one, Sean S. Cunningham really didn't think that the character Jason would work. Yeah. And he really didn't have no part. He owned the underlying rights to Jason, or to the Friday the 13th name and the rights to the Friday the 13th, but he let other people take over because it made money. And so what the hell is he going to do? You know, I'm just going to sit back, collect, and I'll make some other movies. Which
I think the reason they were so intense was partially because he wasn't part of it.
Yeah.
And you got to realize the whole media at the time, during the 80s, I mean, if you look at comics, they were far more intense.
Yeah.
You know, you actually had superheroes that were killing, you know.
Yeah.
I think it just went along with that.
Yeah.
Kind of just an era thing, you know.
Yeah. We're going to get into the third film, Friday the 13th, Part 3, in 3D. Now, I remember, as I said, that was one of the first Friday the 13th movies I ever seen, and I'd have to say that I never got to see it in the 3D until it came out on DVD.
Yeah.
And I would like to see it in its original 3D format. I forgot the name of the format that the 3D that it's in, because if you get it on DVD or Blu-ray, you're going to get the blue and red, or the green and red 3D glasses.
Cardboard glasses.
And but there's another way to watch it. I just cannot remember for the life of me right now what the name of the technology of the 3D is. But it predates real 3D, which you call it nowadays. But it was basically
yeah.
It was a gimmick film. Yeah. I mean, back in that days, around that time, you got Jaws 3D. And you got another movie called The Man Who Wasn't There, that was in 3D, and I think a few others. They were trying to get the 3D thing back in theaters, and it's something that died out pretty quick. I think it was only a year or two that they did the 3D thing. It's not like how it is now, where you're now paying half a paycheck to go see a movie.
Yeah, I think last count it was something like $12 to $13 for 3D. Yeah.
Back in them days and everything, you can probably just
you can take your old lady to dinner for $12, $13 and then see a movie. Right?
And then you can you can probably. I can remember maybe like $4 to go see a movie back then.
There you go.
And my dad would tell me, I used to pay a nickel. Like, whatever.
Yeah. I remember hearing that from my father.
I'm glad your times were great, Dad.
Oh no, hearing for a quarter, I could go out and have a good dinner. Pick up my old lady, then go see a movie, and then take her to dinner for a quarter.
But this movie though, part 3 was it advanced. It advanced a little bit more when it came to the killings and everything.
Yeah.
But the thing is, you have to see it in 3D, because if you watch it in 2D, you see the fact that these people are trying so hard to get something into the camera. I mean, you see this one guy in the beginning of the film. You see this shopkeeper. He's got like he accidentally knocked down this post that was hanging up the curtains, or hanging up his wife's dry laundry and everything. He's like, yeah, I'll put it back up, and he's looking. He don't look like he's looking at the camera, trying to make sure he's angling the stick and the rod in right. And
that was part of the technology at the time. They kind of had to do that in order to make it look 3D.
I mean,
if it wasn't at the right angle, you just were not going to get the dimension of it.
Yeah, as I said, just if you really want to enjoy part 3, watch it in 3D. It's on Blu-ray, as you said. You can also get it in this 4-pack and everything. You get your
the 4-pack, you get the goggles with it.
Yeah, see? And that's about what it looked like when it came out in theaters too. That's what the glasses look like. So
for you kids that now get the plastic ones with the lenses in them,
and you get to throw them away, and you get to throw them in a little bucket and don't get to keep them.
Oh no, they recycle them.
Oh, they recycle them?
Yeah.
No, I keep them.
I'm going to pay that much for the movie.
Yeah, I'm going to keep them. I'll be walking into the theater going, no, I got my own glasses, thank you.
Really trick them out too,
Yeah. But and another thing, what is the iconic part of part 3 is the introduction to the hockey mask, which, by the way, Sean S. Cunningham, the guy who started this all, really doesn't like. But as I said, he wasn't taking part in these movies or anything like that. But he, this is where it started and everything. And the character who you see in the when you watch the movie, he's
it's basically what gave Jason his iconic look. I mean, you say Jason, you think hockey mask, you think machete.
Because in the second one, he was wearing a potato sack.
Yeah.
That people forget that he was wearing just a potato sack, and he looked like what people call the hillbilly deliverance version of Jason.
Yeah.
So, but it was. I can tell you, that I'm sure whoever has that original mask.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they're holding on to that, or that is somewhere in the black market, because nobody really knows what happened to it. I'm sure there were some molds, but that original mask, there's somebody out there that's got that sunker.
I'll tell you what, if I was that guy, I'd be wearing it around the house every day.
Yeah.
Scaring the hell out of everybody.
I can make millions all night.
Oh, I wouldn't bother with that. I'd just be having too much fun with the mask. No, that and a machete. I'll go to town with that. I'll make egg salad and put it on the bread with a machete, all right?
But one thing I remember about that movie and everything is that when you remember the motorcycle gang, the black guy or the black girl and I guess the sidekick motorcycle guy, when they're in a barn and everything, Jason takes care of them, and you think they're gone, and then all of a sudden, when you think that girl is about to get it after she hits Jason, I think with an axe or something.
I believe it was an axe.
I don't know. I don't think, but I'm not sure if it's like right after the axe or not. Oh no, it was right before it, and he comes around. The bike motorcycle guy comes around the corner here, and it's like, oh my God, yes, this guy's still alive. And he goes, I'm going to get you, man. And then what happens? Jason cuts his hand off.
Yes.
And then he repeatedly, starts, just macheting the hell out of him.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Jason turns around and gets hacked in the head with an axe. But it also, one thing about this, when I noticed and everything about the storyline is that the girl that was the main focal point of the movie,
right?
She brought up that when she was living out there as much younger, a few years before, she said she believed she was attacked by somebody, and it was supposed to be Jason that attacked her.
Right.
Which again, you know, makes you wonder, why are you going back there?
Well, also with the timeline, her living out there at that time, you know, Jason was supposedly dead, you know.
Yeah.
And it makes you wonder, you know, when he got out of the water.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going by the, you know, original Friday the 13th, him coming out of the water onto the boat.
Yeah.
Was he under the water the whole time, or, you know, was he just deciding to ditch his mom like all kids dream about? You know, going and hiding in the woods, playing with squirrels and eating candy.
Yeah, and then she says she passes out and everything, and wakes up in the woods and everything like it was all a dream. I'm like, okay, great. You know, Jason's a date rapist. You know, he's slipping in on some date rape drugs and everything. And
I'd hate to think that there's roofies just around the woods everywhere. Thanks for ruining camping for me.
Okay, well, let's get into the fourth film, and it was called The Final Bullcrap Chapter. Friday the 13th final chapter, which and pretty much helped a lot of us introduce us to what we call Corey Feldman.
Yeah. For you kids that don't know, there used to be two Coreys that ruled a lot of, you know, movies.
Sadly, the wrong one died.
Yeah, yeah.
Really. This movie had a lot of nudity. This movie made up for a lot of nudity that the other two apparently must, or the other three must have lacked.
I think it was the lack of substance in the plot of the movie.
I think you're like,
it's kind of like, okay, we're missing big parts of the story. What do we need, guys? Throw me something.
TNA.
How about some boobs?
I need more boobs.
This guy's getting a promotion.
Or, you know, I'm sure the writer's like, you know, God, I don't feel like writing today. Can we just
big letters on one page? Boobs. Yeah.
Boobs here, boobs there, boobs everywhere.
There you go.
Crispin Glover was in the movie.
Yes.
And I heard a few stories about Crispin Glover on the set. Like, you know, he was like a fun guy to be around and everything. Like, you know, he was, you know, his acting. If you've ever heard, you know, look up Crispin Glover. Just then you'll know.
There you go.
I mean, he played the father in the Back to the Future, the first Back to the Future movie and everything. Yep. But just look him up on YouTube, Google him and everything. This guy is a character all of himself and everything. Honestly, this guy needs a reality show just to, just all of them. He's out there. But I have to say though, this one, Tom Savary, who did the makeup for the first Friday the 13th, came back and did the makeup for this and everything. And this was supposed to be, because part 1, part 2, and part 3 came out 1 year apart.
Yeah.
And then they had a year off, and then they came up and did with the final chapter. And this was supposed to be the final movie.
Yeah.
That was what the director thought he was going to be doing. He was going to kill Jason off, and this was going to be it. I can remember seeing a review on YouTube when I was looking up stuff for Siskel and Ebert, and especially on a documentary about Friday the 13th. Siskel, especially Roger Ebert. Roger Ebert had a hatred for the Friday the 13th movies, and it became so apparent when it came time for him to review this movie. He actually lobbied to try to get Paramount to stop making these movies. And he was just, I mean, if you look up Siskel and Ebert and Friday the 13th review, and you will see basically fire coming out of this man's eyes for hatred when it comes to these movies, especially the fourth one. It was
in his defense, the fourth one was where the series kind of took a small turn for the worst. It kind of went downhill for the fourth one for me. You know, it was, like I said, holes in the plot. You know, it just wasn't what you were used to. By seeing the first one, you know, and the second one, third one, you expected more.
Yeah.
You know?
And it makes you wonder, did the dog jump out the window to avoid Jason, or did Jason throw that dog out the window?
I don't know. I wouldn't think he's much of an animal lover, but living in the woods, maybe. There's no telling on that.
And then, you know, I don't know if you really, I don't even think that, you know that the mother died. Corey Feldman's mother died. There was a flash, lightning, and she gets shooken up and everything, but you don't actually see her death, and you don't see her body anywhere. Which, but when it was funny and everything, because there's one guy that comes out of nowhere from out in the woods and everything. Yeah. I can't remember the character's name, but he was kind of a love interest for Jarvis's older sister.
Yeah. And
he was looking for his sister, who was I guess you can say the slutty girl, and the second one who, when she was in bed with her boyfriend, Jason took I think it was a pitchfork and or a spear. I think it was a spear. Yeah, it was a spear.
It was a
spear while they were in bed, and he just stuck it right in between the both of them. So so he was on the lookout to search for his sister and everything, since she had been missing. And I said this was part 4 was supposed to be a couple weeks that happened after the events. When it started picking up and everything. It's supposed to, because it picks up directly at the crime scene of the 3rd one, and then a couple weeks pass and everything, and Jason's body is missing from the morgue and everything. Big surprise. But I feel that there are some plot holes in here.
Yeah.
And especially the types. The fat girl sitting by the side of the road.
Yeah.
Eating a banana, and then she gets stabbed in the throat.
He just might have had a thing against bananas.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. She was sitting by his mom's grave. If you look very closely and everything, you see Pamela Morey's gravestone, which made no sense because I think Jason took her head.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, but yet again,
I think it shows up in one of the later films.
It was as I said, for the finale of the film, the love interest guy who was for Tommy Jarvis's sister, he starts talking to his sister and everything about the history of Jason and everything, and then of course Tommy, he catches on to what's going on, and the little boy is supposed to be this makeup wizard and everything, that he's out of scraps of paper and plastic and a bunch of junk and everything, he makes all these mechanical little monster stuff like that. Makes these really cool masks and stuff like that. And
which I wish they would have done a little more with. It was very interesting to see him being able to do that. I wish they would have incorporated that a little bit more into the film.
I mean, I think the closest they did and everything is when Tommy made himself look like a young Jason.
Yeah.
And it distracted Jason from trying to kill his sister. But then all of a sudden, when he got knocked in the face with a machete, the big reveal was his face. People already seen his face. By then, it wasn't a big reveal, but the way he did finally get it, he got macheted right here in the eye, and it stopped like right here, like basically right towards the center. And when he fell down, you saw this really gory, and it actually was a really cool scene of him hitting the butt of the knife and everything, going down and going right up to his skin, and you can tell it was animatronics too and everything, the eye moving around. But then when after Tommy had already hatched Jason in the head, he goes and hugs his sister, and then all of a sudden he sees Jason's hand start moving, and he grabs the machete again and starts going at his head and everything, screaming, "Die! Die! Die!" Spoiler alert. Die! That was, that was a pretty intense scene. And that was, because, it was a kid doing it, and it was a kid that ended up being the one that killed Jason. I don't really understand why they would do it like that, but as I said, I don't
know. Sometimes I like to toy with a little bit of philosophical thinking. I think it might have been, innocence destroying corruption, kind of thing. But, you never know. I mean, unless you're one of the writers, you don't know the real motivation behind it.
Yeah, as I said, it kind of took me off and everything, because you're like, okay, well, Jason just met his match out of a
it was kind of hard to
10-year-old.
Yeah, it was kind of hard to see that, this unstoppable juggernaut, this killing machine taken down by a child. Just it was a little deflating, to be honest with you. You're pumped through the whole movie, you're like, yeah, Jason's really getting these guys, and you see him taken down by a kid, and you just really think, man,
and then at the end
that's all it took.
And then at the end of the movie, the sister wakes up in the hospital, and then she sees Tommy standing at the doorway, and they embrace each other. And then all of a sudden he opens his eyes, and he's looking at the camera, and it goes this bleach white and everything, and the movie's over. So you don't really know what the hell that was all about.